The last set of numbers that I'll show you has to do with orphan drugs. We know that orphan diseases are in some cases easier to be able to detect, and therefore you would think, because of a smaller patient population and some of the other benefits and the uncorrelated nature of them, that they should be able to do better. They do, except in the case of oncology. So orphan oncology indications are actually half the rate of approval as non-orphan designations, which is pretty depressing. So oncology for orphan diseases, 1.9. The vast majority of these is pediatric cancers. So pediatric oncology is a terrible, terrible failure in the view of the people in the industry. They're very frustrated by it. And actually, part of it is economic. It turns out that the economics of pediatric cancer drugs are really unattractive. So if ever we needed better financing, it's for that particular area. And we're working on a simulation that will try to propose a public-private partnership. I'll get to that in a couple of weeks. But just to keep in mind, that gives you a sense of how terrible it is. If you take that out, if you take out oncology, it turns out that the probability of success for orphan diseases is 21.8%. It's actually a little bit higher than the average. So as we expected, orphan diseases can be a little bit less challenging to develop a drug for. So, yes?
So with some of these orphan specification for pediatric oncology, so once something gets through the FDA, then everything's fair game. I mean, we use so many drugs that are FDA approved for something else within the pediatric space. So I'm wondering what this means for the pharma companies to get it through on pediatric oncology. They must have a vision towards how they're going to backdoor that into the adult market.
Well, so that's the challenge. It turns out, and those of you who are in the industry tell me if I'm wrong, because this is what I've heard from various people I've talked to. What I've heard is that it's rare that a pharma company will develop a drug for pediatric indications initially. What they will do is they'll go after the adult indication because the adult is a bigger market, and also the FDA, they would actually like to see it in adults first before it's in children. So
we usually are the 6-month extension. That's why they're coming to us usually, because it's going to get them that extended life. But I thought you were saying that, unless I've misunderstood it, this data you were looking at were drugs. A segment of this were drugs developed for the pediatric market, but because of this orphan drug.
But it's not necessarily the case that it was first. In other words, that drug may have already been approved for another indication, and now they're doing it for ped. Yeah. And it's the strangest thing I have to tell you, because you would think that children are like the most defenseless patients there, that we would like do everything under the sun to help them, and the economics are terrible. For the business model is terrible. So that's a real priority that needs to be addressed. So we'll come back to that. So those are the statistics in our analysis, and we believe that they're actually more accurate. And when you use these numbers to calculate various different financial conditions, you will get different results than when you're using a much smaller subsample. So our hope is that this will be used more often.